Sorry about the late drop. When snow happens in Washington, D.C., the world loses their minds. I don't think we were ready for it, truthfully. Like, our city was not ready for snow. I'm going to confess something. I thought to myself maybe I wouldn't confess this because it's egregious. But I told someone we got 2 feet of snow. And I sent a photo to them. They're from Minnesota. It was 4 inches. I mean, men love me, right? Men love me. Only I could confuse 4 inches for 2 feet. If you know, you know. So that's why we didn't record on a Monday, because the world lost their fucking mind, because everybody in this city confuses 4 inches for 2 feet. Like, we had people stuck on 95 still. It's like literally they're still struggling, you know? Like, the world was not ready for the snowstorm, and like, we're gonna get to the episode, but listen, it was 65 on New Year's Day. The next day it was 25 and 2 feet of snow. You know what I mean? I still haven't gotten my car out from the side street that it's on. So, folks, anyway, and then on Sunday I did go on a podcast, the Wrightster Ricky Sanchez, and talked about Philly. It's a Philly podcast. Probably the top Philly podcast in the country, hosted by my guy, the man, the myth, Philadelphia legend, Spike Eskin, the son of Howard Eskin. And we went in detail about Joel Embiid. We talked about, of course, Ben Simmons, the future of this team, the future of the franchise. So wherever you can find your podcast, go and check that episode out. I also talked about why I left Barstool. I talked about my origin story. It was not just a Philadelphia conversation, it was a life conversation. But the prep for that, because you never know what people are going to ask you, the prep for that got me thinking about Philly. And it got me interested. Listen, now you have my full attention, Philly. So now we decided to turn that prep that I did not need into this Sixers episode. Well, I didn't expect it to be a personal question, but like, here we are. So my New Year's resolution was to be nicer. So let's look first and foremost about what's good about the Sixers this year before I get into what the dumpster fire of this team has been, not just this year, but for the last 8. Like, this team, the process has been a joke. I think you guys know that. Like, I'm not just trolling. Like, the process has been a disappointment. So let's go into what you guys are doing well. First and foremost, the team is currently 20-16. And the truth is, it could be so much worse. Yeah. Embiid has been gone. Your star center has been gone. The player that you've built your entire franchise around multiple times has been gone with COVID for a solid month. Tobias has been garbage. He's been stealing money. And of course, you've had this drama surrounding Ben Simmons looming over this franchise like a gray, dark cloud to the point where people can't even practice because he's like a distraction. There's like news reports all the time about this. He's been MIA outside that one practice. Considering everything, 6th in the East isn't so bad. Cheer up, Sixer fans. Like, you thought you were going to be the 2 or 3 seed in the East, which was we'll call it an unrealistic expectation. Like I said, I called you a 6 seed preseason. That was one of the only right things I got correct in the East. But you could be Orlando. Like, you could be completely down in the dumps when your star center literally thought he might die. That's what he said. I thought I might die. So let's dissect some of the reasons from a basketball perspective that this franchise hasn't turtle yet. You are a decent three-point shooting team, even with Tobias having a down year. You're 3rd in the league in turnover percentage, 12.3 times per game. And a lot of that is due to your guy, Tyrese Maxey, who we're going to talk about in a second. He is literally helping you. He's keeping the ball from turning over. Without Maxey on the floor, you are 27th in the league at turnover percentage. So it's really just him balling. Really just him becoming a true point guard, a real facilitator, a true floor general. And you're also leading the league in free throw percentage, 80+%. But mostly the reason that you're overperforming, which I think is what you're doing. I don't think Philly fans will like me saying that, but that's what you're doing. Role players have become stars somewhat and exceeded expectations, at least for nearly the first half of the season. So let's talk about the number one reason why, which has been Tyrese Maxey. Number one bright spot all year. He's gone from 6-man off the bench to having an all-star-like season. I'm not sure now at this point if Rich Paul would want to trade him. Like Rich Paul said, when Ben Simmons goes, Tyrese Maxey will also go. Those are both Rich Paul clients. It appears that this fit is working beautifully. He's averaging almost 17 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and putting up, like outside of those numbers, he's putting up huge numbers in important games, like he did against Brooklyn. You won against Brooklyn with all their pieces outside of Kyrie in Brooklyn after just losing to them a couple of nights ago. Another thing Maxey has improved on, I'd say is underrated, is his defense. He's no Drew Holiday, but against Harden, you got Harden to turn the ball over 6 times in that game. Like, he put up numbers, but he's going to put up numbers on anybody. Like, that's like when you guard Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is going to put up numbers. But his on-the-ball defense has improved. He's pressuring the hell out of guys. He's getting them to commit mistakes, and that's important. Offensively, Maxey has been impressive too. Out of 26 players who finished with at least 200 possessions as a pick-and-roll ball handler this season, Maxey is where? Maxey is 5th in scoring efficiency behind Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, Zach LaVine, and Trae Young. Excuse me, sir, that is a fucking baller move. That is, according to Synergy Sports, he is ahead of Chris Paul, DeMar DeRozan, and Ja. He's ahead of those guys. That is surprising, I would say. I don't think people would put Maxey in the conversation there in terms of, like, pick-and-roll ball handler, but Jesus Christ, wow. Like, that's important. He's got wheels. He's got touch around the rim. He's potent in a 2-man game with Joel Embiid. Pick your poison. And he's become a real aggressive scoring threat. And I think the thing that people have been knocking him on for so long is that Maxey's too hesitant. Maxey wants to pass the ball too much. Maxey's not a dog. Maxey now is taking important shots in important moments, and he knows when to pass and when to fucking shoot. And that is what you need. Seth Curry, he's a little shrimp. We know that. But the bright spot for Philly, too, has been him in this 2-man game with Joel Embiid. He's a bad defender. We know that. He's little. He's too little. And he's a chucker. But he is legitimately shooting 50% as a pick-and-roll ball handler, and he's a pick-and-roll ball handler like 30% of the time. That's up a solid 6%, which is a meaningful number from last year. Let's talk about my man, George Niang. This dude is... I thought it was Gorgie. First of all, I just want to tell on myself again, because that's what I do. I am accountable to myself and to the fans. I got him confused with Gorgie Jang. George Niang. George Niang. I'm confused. But anyway, he is a dog. 6'7", power forward, perfect fit, shooting 40% from 3. Like, what 4s do you know that aren't stars that are shooting at this clip? And he's shooting 8 per 36. He's shooting 6 of them joints a night. At 40%, 6'7", dog, an irritant. He's got the aggressive nature of, like, in terms of being an irritant, like a Patrick Beverley or a Joel Embiid, but he's just, like, making a couple, like, I don't even know what he's making, but it's not a lot. He could be one of the more underrated signings this year for the Sixers. And, like, you can tell he's good on this team because I thought about scenarios where, for example, like someone like Boston would want someone to space the floor, which is what you need for Joel Embiid, which is what you also need for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And Sixer fans in my mentions like, nah, we'll keep Niang. He's ours. That's how you know. And Sixers fans will turn on you if you're no good. They're like, no, we're keeping Niang. He's been a piece. And he's been, I would say, the only real bright spot as a power forward in this role since, like, Irion Ilyasova. Like, sense of that. Anyway, Korkmaz is always good. He's shooting. His shooting's dipped a little bit. He slid under 30 from 3 now, but he's been good earlier in the season. He's been a bright spot hitting threes in crucial moments. Of course, Joel Embiid has been out with COVID. So Andre Drummond, tremendous in his absence, rebounding. Shake Milton has missed time, but he's been pretty good. Isaiah Joe, another little bright spot, put up 18 in 21 minutes against the Rockets. And, he's just a little baby. He's just still coming along in his own. And now it's time. It's time. The bad. The ugly. The Ben Simmons situation is not ideal, I would say. But it's not the only problem. Let's talk about the bigger issue. The bigger issue is an asset on your squad who's a net negative. Like, Ben Simmons is a net positive trade asset. That just is the case, unfortunately, to me. Like, I don't think... I mean, of course he is, but, like, he's just toxic. But, like, Tobias Harris actually is a net negative. You have to package picks with his contract to move him. He's stealing money right now. He's stealing. He's making checks notes. $32.74 million this year. Is he worth that? I'd say no. I'd say Sixers fans would say no as well. Like, he's a Doc Rivers a favorite. The only reason that they picked him up and kept him and didn't trade him is because of, I believe, his relationship with Doc Rivers. Like, the fact that he's on this team and that him and Ben are on this team over Jimmy Butler is just a crime. It's a crime to me. And he's the most inefficient player on this team. Gross. He passes up open threes. I mean, you can't have one of your highest paid guys being an inefficient, like the most inefficient on your team. Like, you just can't. It's not fucking Carmelo Anthony in 2003. I'm sorry. Like, this is not the league that we're in anymore. He passes up open threes consistently and shoots worse twos. Unopened twos, we'll call it. Closed twos. Disrupting spacing for Joel, which is exactly the opposite of what you need. This isn't the LA Lakers here, right? Like, this isn't, we're not going to just, like, do the wrong things consistently around LeBron James and Joel Embiid. Like, no. He's not making his teammates better. And like I said, he's stealing money. Like 40% from 3 last year and below 30% from 3 this year. Why is that? It's because he doesn't get a bunch of open looks because of Ben Simmons. He's not just standing there in the corner when people collapse on Ben going to the rack and like passing out, kicking out. Like, he's just, who's doing that for him? No one. Not Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey apparently doesn't love Tobias Harris. He's not getting open looks. The team defense of this team is atrocious. They are 20th in defensive rating. And last year they were number 2 in defensive rating. Yes, a lot of that has to do with Ben. But you also do have Clamps and Matisse Thybulle, who, isn't that much. I mean, he's worse, but he's not that much worse to go from 2nd to 20th. They're dead last in the league in rebounds. They're dead last in the league in rebounds. Dead last. That's below Portland. I'm just saying this multiple times. Your podcast isn't skipping. I'm telling you this for a fact. That's disgusting. You're getting destroyed. And you have Andre Drummond. So I don't know. This is why this team is 27th in second chance points, just behind the Hornets, Kings, and Raptors. Like, you are allowing teams to feast in second chance points. Putbacks galore. The three-point shooting is bad. Like, this is the whole entire game plan for surrounding Joel Embiid. Shooters. That's the reason that Ben's not working. Shooters. At the moment, the Sixers are 27th in the league in three-point attempts. 31.5 per game. That's not ideal. 14th in percentage at 35.1. So too often, the Sixers, like I've said, Tobias Harris, they're just turning down open looks from deep, and then they just take tougher shots for less points. Tell me why that's a good idea. Philadelphia needs to start firing away like their name is the Boston Celtics, like where you shoot 50 of them a game. Like, you have shooters. Like I just said, George Niang, let him shoot 10 of those joints a night. Don't act like you don't know who George Niang is. Don't do that. Google him. Don't do that. Also, passing the ball is really not great either. The team is 25th in assists per game. Niang. Yeah. 25th in assists per game. You've seen him before, which reflects a young point guard who isn't getting Embiid the ball. And there's no swing. It's two-man game, brick or make, right? Maxey, for all his positives, averages less than 5 assists a game. You should probably get 5 assists just throwing the ball to Joel Embiid in the blocks early in the shot clock. That's what you need to do. And that's why this team is in the middle of the road. 13th in pace. Scoring's down from last year. They've gone from 113 points per game last year to 106 per game. I know you have 9 games without Joel Embiid. However, it's not ideal. It's not great. And then, of course, the drama surrounding the team with Ben Simmons, we don't need to get into the background of that. We've already done it so many other times, and other people have as well. But what we will look to do is look at the fallout from this. There are two questions that we should be asking now. Should Doc Rivers be on the hot seat? And should Daryl Morey be on the hot seat? The Sixers just beat the Nets in Brooklyn without Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, you can't ask Doc, if you're Doc Rivers and you blew the game as usual as your coach, and they ask you whether Ben Simmons is the point guard on a championship roster, you should say, can I phone a friend? Like, I need to ask my GM what he thinks, because I need to ask our ownership group what they think I should say. Or say yes, just lie. You lie all the time. These coaches lie every day. It's ingrained in their DNA. When you are on the back end of a disappointing loss to the Atlanta Hawks, which you didn't think was going to happen, and they ask you these questions, you just lie. Because if you want to move him, we've talked about this before, if you want to move someone, you don't decrease their value. If you're, a stockholder of, we'll just say, Pfizer, you don't say like, oh, well, COVID's going away. COVID doesn't exist anymore. Or, if you're, that's a bad example. But you know what I'm trying to say? You just can't artificially, it's like Elon Musk consistently says things to bring down Tesla. I don't know why, but he does. He just does. That's like basically what Doc Rivers did. And this guy, Dan Burke, who's taking over for Doc when Doc has COVID. When Doc has COVID, he actually calls plays, he calls timeouts, and that was the game that they ended up winning against Brooklyn. Doc wasn't coaching that game, folks. Like, this is like when, very similar to like when Lloyd Pierce, head coach of the Atlanta Hawks, went on paternity leave, and the trash-ass Atlanta Hawks went on a tear. And you're like, maybe, just maybe, the roster's better than we think it is, and maybe this coach has got to go. And he did go, and then all of a sudden, the Atlanta Hawks ended up in the Eastern Conference Finals. The mismanaging of the rotation really is a symptom of the problem plaguing Doc Rivers, which is just he's stubborn, and he lacks creativity, and he's resting on one championship, largely created by Tom Thibodeau. Just truth. Just the truth bomb. And like it comes out in late in games when he just doesn't draw up plays. Just doesn't come up with ways to get players and stagger their minutes, and guys like Joel Embiid are ending up being gassed. And the elephant in the room, of course, is Ben Simmons, but rather than to recap the drama, and also Daryl Morey can't be asking for the moon. For Daryl, for everybody, for Ben Simmons. Like, you can't be like, I want a top 25 player and also 5 draft picks. You're delusional. And I think, like I said before, if you can't move Ben with Daryl Morey at the helm, then Daryl Morey shouldn't be at the helm. Ben, there's some trade ideas floated around. Here they are. A lot of them. Here's are just a few that are just coming out over the weekend. Philadelphia 76ers receive Evan Fournier. Kemba Walker, Obi Toppin, New York Knicks 2022 first-round pick unprotected, which is probably going to be tasty because they are looking not good. New York Knicks 2023 first-round pick, maybe a swap, more favorable to Philly. New York Knicks 2024 first-round pick, top 10 protected, or the 2025 first-round pick unprotected if they end up getting the top 10 pick. New York Knicks 2026 first-round pick, swap. So that's one deal. I don't hate that deal. I don't love that deal either. I don't think they need Kemba Walker. Listen, 4 first-rounders, Fournier, net negative. Kemba Walker, net negative. Obi Toppin, nice young piece. I don't think my man Daryl Morey is going to go for that one. Here's another deal. Sixers get Karis LeVert. It's a 3-team deal. Sixers get Karis LeVert, Norm Powell, Larry Nance Jr. Pacers get C.J. McCollum, Nasir Little, Cody Zeller, Portland's 2024 first-round pick, lottery protected, 2022 second-round pick from Portland. Trailblazers get Ben Simmons, Miles Turner, Danny Green. Do not hate that whatsoever. But with the Sixers in 6th place currently, let's just be real. Their ceiling's probably 4th. Ceiling. Absolute ceiling. And they're not a real contender. And I think they know that, which means another year wasted of Joel Embiid's prime. And the man has a million injuries and a history as long as a CVS receipt, and like so long. And like truthfully, I asked Spike on this podcast, and I was like, yo, what do you think is the future? And he goes, if they can't get a real player for Ben, there's a real chance, a non-zero, and it's actually a likelihood that Joel Embiid will not be on the team in 2 years from now. He will be somewhere else. That is the man who's grown up in Philly with a father who's been talking about Philly for a fuckload of time, like many, many years, tapped into what's happening. And he believes there is a real scenario where Joel Embiid will not be in Philadelphia, which means that the process starts again, folks. And that means this franchise is at a crossroads. Gotta be tough for Sixers fans. Couldn't happen to a nicer fan base, a more humble fan base, a sweeter fan base. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but there's more Sixers pain to come. More Sixers drama to come. This is just the beginning.